Gunga Din is based on an incident that happened in New York. We used to stay pretty much exclusively at the Gramercy Park Hotel, which is this cool old hotel that has a park and a bit of a snooty attitude. In those days, I remember I was wearing a leather coat, kind of cut like an Elizabethan jester's coat, tight, multicolored, fanning sleeves, multicolored, with huge marijuana leaves on them, right? Leather pants, leather boots that came up to here. I mean, hair, beard. I mean, just, we were all like that. That's how we were, right? And the food was good at this restaurant. And my mom was living about an hour and a half away from the hotel. So we were playing Carnegie Hall. And my mom had a seat at Carnegie Hall. She loved the opera. She loved classical music. So my mom came in, and I took her to the rehearsal at Carnegie Hall that afternoon. She showed me where she was sitting, where her seat was at Carnegie Hall, up on the first balcony right in the front. And then she left, right? And I asked her why she left, and she said she couldn't handle the volume. It was too loud, right? So then I said, well, come on, let's go down and we'll have some dinner. So I had lunch there that afternoon with my mother, dressed the way I was dressed, right? But since it was after 5, they said, I'm sorry, sir, you can't come into the dining area without a jacket. And of course I said, well, this is a jacket. They said, well, no, it has to be a jacket and a tie. And of course I told them, I don't own a tie, you know. And I should have been cool and just said, well, what do we do in a case like this, you know? But, I mean, now I would do that, but back then, no way, you know. So I kind of went off on the guy and just said, you know, when everything changes, you guys are going to be buried in your suits. You know, you're wearing the suits now that you're going to be buried in. Why would I want to dress like that? And my mom was like, oh, John. So, you know, it was a big ruckus, right? And I was saying to them, look, you take our money when we sleep here. You take our money when we have lunch here. But now you won't take our money because of the way I'm dressed? I said, well, you can go back to your room and you can eat there and we'll take your money then. I said, so anyway, it became this big scene with me screaming at the maitre d', and it was just ridiculous. So, of course, everybody got a big kick out of it. And one of the gigs we were playing was in Central Park, which was a great place to play. But this particular gig, Chuck Berry was on the bill and Chuck didn't show up. Right? So the song is about the experience of being in LA. And then that incident with my mother is mentioned. It's very surreal. It's almost like I Am the Walrus, or, I mean, it's like the things that are put together in that song. You know, yeah, I really like the song too. And even though Gene will tell you that he just used Gunga Din for the rhyme, I liked the image. Because Gunga Din was the guy who showed up with the water when people were dying. And I was the guy who showed up when the band was dying. So I felt that he was kind of acknowledging that. And Gene's an amazing guy. He used to make up names for me. You know, he used to call me Jean-Pierre from the North Woods and all these names, right? And he used to love to tell me all these country idioms because he knew I was from New York. So you'd say something like, hey, Gene, do you want to go get a cup of coffee? And he'd say, why, Jean-Pierre, whatever tickles you, oh, whatever pleases you, plum tickles me to death. He'd say all this like backwoods kind of stuff. And he loved to do stuff like, we'd be in some public place and he'd call me one of these names. You know, like one time we were in a bookstore in Texas or something, and I'm on one end of the bookstore and he's on the other, and he said something like, Jean-Pierre, we're going back to the hotel. So then I'd say, okay, just a minute, I'll be right there. And then I'd hear the woman in the bookstore saying, Jean-Pierre, we're closing in 5 minutes. You know, he just loved to do, do stuff like that, plant ideas in people's mind. But anyway, that song I always felt was kind of a brotherly arm around me saying, you showed up at the right time, you did the right thing. You helped us out.